through the 13th from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. on McLean Avenue.
Mr. President, I would like to move that to 9 p.m.
Okay.
May the 10th from 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 in Lions Park.
Yeah,
May-
that's okay.
Okay, May 10th on South Monterey Street from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m.
I believe the neighbors are all okay with that.
Okay. May the 24th, 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Congress, Washington, Dauphin, and Royal Streets.
Yeah, okay. It's only a couple hours. I'm good there too.
June the 7th from 7:30 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. on Shelby Street.
All right.
April the 12th from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. at Public Safety Memorial Park.
Okay.
May 17th, 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. at Medal of Honor Park.
I'm sorry, that's Medal of Honor. Could we change that 7 a.m. to an 8 a.m.?
Okay.
And then just out of curiosity, when we communicate back to the applicant, is it just via email, I guess?
No,
Or
we sent a letter.
could we is there some way we could put in there maybe again, the problem is where this takes place, where the Port City Pacers start is right around the pavilion area, and it does abut an apartment complex. And I had some kind of feedback. So if possible, could we just communicate to them like, hey, giving it to you at 8, but between 8 and 9, if you can, just keep the music down, I guess, if possible. Or I'll reach out to the applicant. But we'll do 8 o'clock then.
April the 20th from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. in Langen Park. Public hearings today is a public hearing to consider rezoning property located at 3300 Knollwood Drive from R1 and B1 to R3.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
we'll likely have many speakers on this one. This one's sort of gotten everybody, stirred up in the general area. So I expect that we'll have several speakers on this particular item.
Who's the current owner of that property?
I'm sure.
Who's the
This is-
current owner of that property?
Your district.
Well, not yet.
Anybody know?
Okay.
This would be in your district.
It's in the,
I think as far as the ownership at the moment, not completely exactly sure, but I do know that the project that's being proposed is a Clarence Ball project, I believe.
it's not the apartments or
The proposal for the use of this portion of the land is some low-rise, single-story townhome style marketed towards affordable senior living.
I also would like to know who owns this property right now.
Who owns it?
No, he said he's proposed developer, but who actually has title to it right now?
That's what I can tell you. I don't.
Casey.
Yes, please.
The property's owned by GK Land Holdings, Clarence Ball.
Okay, thank you, Casey.
Is this isn't part of the 4 9% projects that are proposed by this county, is it?
I'm not sure.
Say again? There's 4 9% tax credit proposed by Mobile County.
This is for the
and normally
rezoning?
it's only 2 that are awarded.
No,
to
this is separate of the rezoning is a separate project proposal to us. It's a 4% bond proposal. We
It's a
haven't moved
4%
forward with it yet because we're waiting to see on zoning.
Mr. President. Jamie, since you're there, the kind of just the background of this property. Obviously, what's up today for public comment or public hearing, that's the old footprint of the hospital site there,
Right.
an old hospital. So
Right.
that's the actual tangible hospital there.
Yeah.
Right now, the parking lot, I believe, is B1, which I'm diving into a different area. I believe the parking lot, what was the parking lot, is B1. Where the pad of the hospital was, is R1. Previously, we granted a zoning change for the piece. I guess it would be called Medical Park per se.
Mhm.
That's across the street, across Medical Drive. And then that was the old sites of I want to say there's 4 buildings, 1 left, 3 were tore down. And then that's what the the affordable housing project is, I guess, or the tax credit project.
Yeah, we have two separate proposals in us, one for the 9%, which is submitted to the state, and then the 4%, which is this property. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Public hearing to consider the application of Juanita Mullis for certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a limousine service. Public hearing to consider the application of Shanika Matthews Hobdy for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a sedan service. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Denise Greer, Animal Shelter and changes to ordinance. Jim Walker, city towed his vehicles and equipment despite having a previous agreement. Reggie Hill, continued position from last week and offer observations from the entitlement committee meeting.
Have we made or had any kind of conversations with Jim Walker about his vehicles and how that's worked out or being worked out, or anybody?
Last conversation I had with him about him was the last time we towed him and we returned them back to him. My ask of him at that time was to put them somewhere other than where he put them. And so we went through the process again and they've been towed again. But I haven't had any conversations with him since this most recent towing.
So the agreement that he's talking about, or will talk about today, is what you just referred to,
Yeah.
some sort of compromise or something with the city. I mean, I wondered what he was talking about when he said agreement.
I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see because he has not contacted me about anything. The agreement I had with him was that we would return the vehicles at no charge, but for him not to put them back downtown. Then there was conversation about screening. I don't know, is David here? David may have had more conversations with him since I had, because he did return them back downtown.
Yeah, there was no screening though.
That's right.
Good morning. And yes, there was discussion with Mr. Walker at the very beginning that he had options, and it's in the code that he could place the vehicles inside of a building where they could not be seen, or behind a barrier where your neighbors cannot see them. He had that option. I believe he did contact the planning department, but he never did submit to me a permit or a permit application. It is inside the historic district, so there's different levels of boards he would have to get that approval for. And I never received documentation that he started that process. So we did remove some of the vehicles. One of the vehicles was removed by the corporate owner, the commercial property owner. His brother removed the bus.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. And the city did remove the trolleys.
How much time did we give him before we started the process?
The standard notice is 30 days where we put those yellow stickers on the vehicles. We also have a time frame when we send notice. So we tracked and made sure that the return receipts did get delivered, but we also gave him additional time because the brother decided to reach out to us and say, hey, I'm looking to remove these vehicles. So he got an additional 2 months to remove the vehicles, which they did not. So we had to remove the trolleys to the impound lot, but the brother removed the bus. I believe he towed it out of town.
Okay.
So it's trolleys and a bus. It's not.
Yeah, it was
just
6 trolleys in an old school bus, and it was right there on Cedar Street.
Technically 2 trolleys with a trailer. 2 went with engines and 2 with trailers. They were originally developed in Disneyland in California, moved to Texas with the Dallas Cowboys, and then moved to Mobile.
Moved to Mobile.
Yeah. And none of these vehicles were operational.
I was just going to ask,
yes.
are they operational?
Completely. None of them operational.
Well, the biggest issue is we had homeless people sleeping in them and coming in and out of them and doing things that they weren't supposed to do. That's what sparked the problem.
And he's also aware that in this process, there's a civil procedure. He had the ability to appeal to the city council, and he chose not to.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Consent resolutions held over 03553, appoint Alan Williams as supernumerary to the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, I took some time and looked at this. I mean, he's a good appointment, you know what I mean? But it's up to the council.
Sure.
It's recommended by one councilman.
Is everyone good with it? Okay.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Woods.
I'd like to be listed as a co-sponsor if possible too on it.
Do what? I'm sorry, what?
Listed as a
I'll
co-sponsor.
like to be listed as a co-sponsor.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Resolutions held over 01-538, authorize the purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of property located at 1668 West Interstate 65 Service Road South. 01-539, authorize reimbursable utility agreement with Alabama Power Company for the Innovating St. Louis Street Project. 08-541, approved purchase order to Acatus US for boring for intersection signals. 08-543, approved purchase order to Image Trend for annual renewal of rescue and EMS reporting software. 08-544, approved purchase order to SHI International for annual renewal of Microsoft Windows and Office software products. 08-545, approved purchase order to 10X Software Solutions for setup and leasing of electronic polling equipment for 2025 municipal election. 09-546, transfer funds for public facility improvements, Alabama Cruise Terminal Fund to Capital Project Cruise Terminal Parking Deck repair.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Penn.
while we talking about that, I just want to give a big thanks to the administration, Joe Snow, and everyone with the Alabama Cruise Terminal. I heard that we're in the year-round service with Carnival, so awesome job. Thank y'all.
It's exciting.
09-547, transfer funds from the unassigned fund balance in the general fund to capital improvement fund for the animal shelter. 21-548, authorized contract from Macquarie and Williams for North McGregor reconstruction. 25-549, accept an easement for recreational purpose for 3 Mile Creek Greenway Trail Project. 31-550, adopt the Community and Housing Development CDBG Home and ESG Fiscal Year 2025-26 Action Plan.
Hang on just a second. Do we have a date yet that we'll be starting the ESG shelter grant stuff based on federal changes and presidential holdups and all that stuff? Talking about our emergency roof repairs, our shelter grant money, are we still on critical repair grant? Are we still on track? Are we still looking at a possible June start date as opposed to April?
We're looking at possibly a July start date, July 1st for applications.
July now.
Yeah, we're waiting on HUD to give us the final information. That they haven't tabulated the final information since Congress passed the budget so late, so we're waiting on that.
So July instead of April.
Probably.
Jamie, when that happens, can you make sure you give us all the information, all the council,
Okay.
so we can flyer, so we can put it in our newsletter?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Madam Clerk.
31-551, adopt an additional public service provider to the CDBG 2025-26 Action Plan Boys and Girls Club. Ordinance is being introduced. 64015 is the rezoning on Laurelwood Drive. 88016, authorized land exchange of properties located at 321 Adams Street, 321 North Warren Street, 305 Congress Street, and Lion Street, not now needed for municipal purposes. 88017, authorized land exchange located at 603 Broad Street and 2865 Phillips Street, not now needed for municipal purpose.
Mr. President, these two both have been brought to my attention, and I have asked that all entities talk with the community partners in this, and I believe they have. But I still haven't heard back from at least one of them yet, and I don't think there's any major opposition to it. This gets laid over a week anyway. I think we're all waiting on the last group to be pretty much pleased with it. The development's a good one. Looks good up there, so I don't think we're going to have too many problems, but I'd just like to hear back from them. So I hope that I hope that we reach out to them within the week if we can, please.
Madam Clerk.
Consent resolutions being introduced. 03-556, appoint Russell Mitchell to the Mobile Housing Authority Board. 31.
Didn't we just make an appointment last week? So there were 2 open spots on the board?
31-557, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive grant from Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation grant to in support of the Mobile Fire Rescue Department, $45,000, no local match. 37,558, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer, table wine, off-premises only license for Broad Express, 158 North Broad Street. 46,559, honorarily renamed Bragdon Avenue to Honorary Christian Union Primitive Baptist Church Way. 6560, approval award special bonus to Bill Mobile Employee of the Month. 6561, 562, and 563 are determined appropriations to Dearborn YMCA, John L. LaFleur Magnet High School, Mobile Symphonic Pops Band, serve a public purpose and approved payment. CIP resolutions being introduced, 09564, transfer funds for capital projects, CIP D2, special project to Housing Improvement Plan Fund, District 2 Neighborhood Improvements, $2,500,000. 21,565, authorized contract with Gorham Air Conditioning Company for CIP Hillsdale Community Center HVAC replacement, $505,909.14. 21,566, authorized contract with Harris Contracting Services for Millers and Tremere Parks Ball Field pole removal, $49,900.
A quick question. On the poles, what poles are we talking about exactly? They light poles?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The poles that we're talking about at Miller's and Tremere?
At Miller's Park, it's the two baseball fields. The lights are already removed off of the wood poles, and they're starting to kind of deteriorate, so we're going to have those removed. And at Tremere, it's the stadium poles.
Are we replacing lights out at Miller's?
It's not on the schedule for right now.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
Resolutions being introduced, 01567, authorized agreement with the Alabama Department of Transportation for detection equipment upgrades at intersections on O'Shell Road. 08568, approved purchase order to Communications International for handheld radios for trash collection department, $24,012.40. 08569, approved purchase order to Fly Motion for drone with camera for Mobile Fire Rescue Department, $55,479. 21,570, authorized contract with Wildlife Solutions for invasive species treatment at Brookley and Silvicultural
Yeah.
burn at Perch Creek, $28,426.86. 21,571, authorized contract with Jordan DeLass to provide racket streaming services for Parks and Rec, $70,000 per year. 21,572, authorized contract with Caleb Richardson to provide tennis lessons and clinics for Parks and Rec Department, $80,000 per year. 25,573, accept a perpetual non-exclusive easement from the Mobile Area Water and Sewer Commissioners for the Africatown Welcome Center. 37,574, 575 are considering the applications for certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a limousine service and to operate a sedan service.
Mr. President, real quick, I did want to go back to 01567, the O'Shell Road. Can you tell the public, I don't know, Jennifer here, how far would that go down O'Shell Road?
It's Ann Street to Parkway.
Thank you.
Clerk.
Call for public hearings, 41,576. Call for public hearing to consider the rezoning of property located at 2415 St. Stephen's Road from R1 to B2, scheduled May 13th. Announcements.
Council, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know about you guys, but for the last week or so, I've been inundated with emails about beavers. Well, I don't think we can take it kind of lightly. It seems like if though we have quite a few people that are kind of pushing the limit on us. I know that we've already passed the process through the council, but is there anything that we can do to kind of appease the people that are asking us to come up with a different process? I don't think he's here. No, he's hot. You know, I know we just got a new Buc-ee's here, man, but you know.
So the question was about alternatives to beavers, correct?
Alternatives to the way we've been capturing and handling the beavers.
Right. So there are a few alternatives. With the state, the regulation is that live beavers cannot be transported within the state. That also means without the state, they can't be moved in any way. They can't cross major thoroughfares or waterways. It's part of the rabies control measures for the state. There are engineering alternatives that have seemed to work in northern states, such as the lady a couple of weeks referred to as the beaver deceiver, which is basically installing a hidden extended culvert into the upper side of the waterway that allows the water to continue to flow because beavers don't check the low side.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows the water to exit out on the low side without being dammed up. And those could roughly cost us anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 to install per site.
And how many would we need? Do you know?
Right now, I believe we have 21 sites that are on the contract.
So it's $42,000, $45,000.
45 to 70, yes, sir. Not really, because the beavers, and honestly, the beavers are going to continue to reproduce in that area and may expand up or down the stream and create more dams for us to have to solve later on. And I think that's the biggest issue with all of these implementations is if we don't stop the animals from reproducing, it's no different than our stray dog situation. They're just going to expand into different areas and dam up different areas and create problems for other people.
Would you do me a favor? Could you give me like a 2-paragraph narrative about the laws on transporting and, or I'm asking the administration to ask you to do this, by the way, because we can't direct anyone, but something that I could put in a newsletter about the rabies and the laws and how they can and can't be transported and why. That way I can educate everybody that's been inundating me with emails saying that we need a better way, and then they'll understand why we have the process the way they are. I think the first time I ever saw this was in 2005. Here we are 20 years later talking about it again. So I like to be able to educate everybody on that so they'll know what our process is and why it is based on law. Okay, if that's okay with you guys, send it out. The other thing is that I think we got somewhere around 4 inches of rain in an hour and a half downtown, and overall we got about 8.5 to 9 inches total over the weekend or Sunday. I've asked over and over and over again because of the amount of trees that we have in Oakley and down the bay and, you know, in these areas that are just inundated with trees along Government Street. I sent the chief of staff and Keisha plethora of text messages, emails, and everything about people concerned about the drainage system being stuffed up with leaves, and that we needed to kind of get that out, and that once a year wasn't good enough for all the trees that we have downtown. So I'm asking that we address that as quickly as possible, even though we got a total of 9 inches of rain. 9 inches, it wouldn't have mattered if the drains were unclogged or clogged with 9 inches of rain. We still would have had the inundation that we did. But if we got an inch of rain on the same day, we would have a similar problem in those neighborhoods that have all these trees in them. So I ask that we clean those neighborhoods that are inundated with these leaves and the drains and the gutters and get that done more reasonably than once a year, like we're telling the neighbors from 311. I mean, that's just, I can't see us just doing it once a year in those neighborhoods. If we can get that done, please. Thank you.
I want to make a comment about that the problem is bigger than just the leaves falling off the trees. We have a problem on Church Street and with drainage between Jackson and Joachim. And if you run a scope down through there, you'll find out that it's completely clogged with tree roots. And, you know, as we continue to plant trees on top of storm drains, and we have them, what happens is that there's roots, they're seeking water. And so if there's a slight crack in that pipe, that root will grow into it and eventually, you know, completely crack it. The solution for that section that I just talked about is to go in and core out the whole line and then line it with a lining, which you're familiar with. That is just that section, but it's true really all over the city. And so we can be vacuuming and we will continue to vacuum. But there's got to be several approaches to this. And hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll come to the city council with some modifications maybe to the tree ordinance about planting trees in close proximity to storm drains, the inlets, and some other things that we should do going forward, because if we don't change some of our practices from a maintenance standpoint, I'm not sure we'll be able to, ever really keep up with it. But it's a huge challenge.
But I appreciate the comment. I would ask that we engage the tree commission there. There's certain or different types of planting processes that we can use, especially with live oaks and heritage oaks. They're more of a surface running root system. And if we do some directional planting with barriers and sand, then we can probably avert some of the things that are happening now. When they first started planting these trees, I don't think we had the knowledge and the know-how, and I don't think when they planted some of those 200-year-old trees on Government Street, they even thought about it. At the time, we were still using wood as our water pipes, and I doubt if they ever thought that. But my biggest request, and I appreciate all the trees, is that we just find a way to help me get these neighborhoods and those drains unclogged, because the neighbors perceive it and perceive at the point of their address what the problem to them is. And I mean, it's a lot of leaves in the street, and if we could just do that, it would help a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dazed and Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Whenever we get one of these big rains, we get people start complaining about flooding. And we get them, 4 or 5 times a year when we get about what we got on Sunday night. And I'm fully behind doing what we can to address it. But, 300 years ago, the people that thought about founding this city found this nice bluff spot, this nice spot on a bluff further up the river. And that's where they founded Mobile. But then they decided that they want to be closer to the Gulf of Mexico. So they left that nice bluff spot and brought the city down here to the mouth of the river and put it on this piece of land. It's about 10 feet above sea level and surrounded by swamps, bayous, and rivers. Now, when we get one of these big rains with south wind, there's no way. I'm not a hydraulics expert, but even I know there's nowhere for that water to go. And down here, it's going to flood. And we can't, there's no municipal system in the world that can handle drainage under those circumstances. We could probably do it if we spent billions with a B of dollars, but I'm not sure even then. What are you going to do? You're going to dump it into the bay, and the bay's already up. So I'm 100% behind doing what we can with modest expense to address it. But we're never, ever going to solve it. We're never going to ever eliminate flooding in these flood-prone areas when we have rains like we had Sunday night. That's my final comment on that.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with the councilman from District 5, but I'm going to be honest here. When people built houses in the 1800s, we didn't have culverts running under the ground trying to contain the water. The water actually ran off on the surface and it went into their natural watersheds there. If you look at the old maps, there was actually a stream and a river that ran through Oakley. It ran through downtown. It ran up Wilkerson, and then it cut back through 1 Mile Creek, and it went back out to the water. There were ditches downtown that we didn't have water running underground, creating what's called static head pressure backing water up into the city. But that's not my biggest issue here. I think we got a little smarter than God when we decided to put the houses on the ground, and we started trying to run the water underground. I think that's the true issue here. I mean, if you look at all the old neighborhoods downtown, that wasn't a house that was lower than 3 feet off the ground. Today, everything's on the ground. That creates a problem, especially in low-lying areas. The issue now is again, can we please just clean the drains?
Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join in with my colleague, Mr. Carroll, regarding the Beaver situation. If we could get that, I think too, not just the state guidelines and laws, but the cost, how much it would cost, so we can put everything together. I think the public just want to know why things are happening. Is it a cost? Is it because the state laws? Because if maybe they want to go to the state representatives and talk to them to change some guidelines. But if we can get that information and put together the costs as well as the state law, so we can share that with our constituents, I think that would be a big help. Regarding the rain, I do have a question. I agree with Councilman Days. This the area that we live in, but what ways that we could also assist? I know Councilman Carroll mentioned about doing the drainage. Do we have anything in place, an ordinance? Because what I notice a lot of times with those leaves, businesses are blowing them in the drains. When I'm driving, they're blowing them in there. Do we have anything in place to not allow them to do that? There's an ordinance in place right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's ordinance.
And so I guess now it's enforcement, Yeah, but
You have to see
you're
them
right.
doing it.
Yeah, you're right. You have to see it. But at the same time, again, like many others, like myself, I have seen multiple times of businesses doing that. I'm just saying that if we have letting our officers know to enforce it when they see it, I think that also creates some help, in those particular areas. So sometimes we can have things on books, but we're not enforcing it. Let's try to enforce those. I believe that can bring some assistance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
we're talking about beavers, we're talking about roots, we're talking about leaves, but we're not talking about the real problem. The real problem is based around priority. The city of Mobile has a tremendous infrastructure shortfall currently, hundreds of millions of dollars. I can probably, if we had $100 million in my district, I could eat it up right away. And this is not low-lying areas because somebody built a house in 1800s in a low-lying area. This are main thoroughfares of ditches that are being overwhelmed, going over the tops of highways, going over the tops of roadways. And there are solutions to those, but they're not going to be resolved by spending $3 million a year on drainage. It's really a matter of priority. And what we saw yesterday and the week before really should serve as a warning to every one of us that was just a rain event. It wasn't a south wind with holding up all the water. That's not what it was. It was a rain event. A deluge.
We get 4 or 5 of those.
Mr. Davis, that's right. 4 or 5 a year, but it only takes one. It only takes one to wipe out a family's entire house. Just one. And there are things that we can do, and it does involve beavers and leaves and roots, but that ain't the problem. The problem is we need to be going after large sums of money to address these major infrastructure problems. So I hope for the next 4 years, the next administration and next city council, that we avoid sort of the exciting things that we've been doing and we'll take a little time to be boring. Be boring on doing things like drainage and be boring in doing things like roadways so that we can sort of start chipping away at these legacy problems that exist. And they exist well beyond downtown Mobile. Certainly they have big problems, but in every one of our districts, maybe not Councilman Dave so much up on the Hill, but in our areas, there are things that you can do to fix it. It's just very expensive things to do. And a modest approach is not going to accomplish it.
I just come back to what I said earlier. Well, I think all this is tied together, and there are some things we can do to help. I think eliminating the beavers is one of the things that helps avoid this flooding. But as far as the leaves and the gutter, and we can sweep more often, but We got hundreds of thousands of oak trees in this city, and they're all dropping stuff right now. They're all dropping stuff right now. And there's absolutely no, we could have 1,000 street sweepers out there right now, and they still wouldn't be cleaning up the leaves out of the gutters. That's just where we are right now at this particular time in the year. And I go back to what I said earlier. We could spend hundreds of millions of dollars on drainage in this city. And with the rains we get 4 or 5 times a year, we would still have flooding.
Mr. Penn.
Because you can't build a municipal system that's going to handle that.
Mr. Penn, Vice President Reynolds and Carroll.
You know, Councilman Reynolds made a point about how much that you can run through $100 million. Well, if you time that times 7, imagine what he can do. And if yours is $100 million, imagine how much that is. So we're looking to just say 7, and you can run through it. So that means it's more help. You time that, that's $700 million we're talking about. $700 million. I think what we, you know, going back to Councilman Davis, I think we need to put that information out. I think we need to say, okay, this is the cost. One of the things that I found out in my district, if we have an issue and they want to spend money in certain places, I say, hey, we can close every ditch if you want to, and that's going to cost us $100 million. Or we can pave these streets and do these. What options you want? We have to be realistic. Do we have $700 million to be able to do it? So we have to talk about things that we can do to make that better. But at the same time, we need to educate the public on how the roots and the trees are creating problems. So if you see a tree getting cut down, don't go and put our name on this tree email and we receive 200, 300 emails because we cut a tree down. It's because we trying to stop the flooding. So I think these are the things that we could do to help. Let's educate our community. Let's educate our city and talk about how much it really would cost for us to do these type of plans. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I'll just piggyback really on what everybody else has already said. I wanted to primarily focus on the grass clippings and cuttings and then people blowing into the street. And like Councilman Penn, many, many times I have been driving somewhere and have seen a yard service, somebody's blowing leaves and grass right out into the street. And it's not just the businesses, it's also residential properties that they do that. And as many times as we have put the information out saying, A, it's illegal, and B, it's going to stop up the inlets and the storm drains, it still continues to happen. So, you know, how do you stop that? There have been ideas about contacting or maybe going through the realtors or something like that to get the word out to the commercial businesses that do these sorts of things. An example, one time I was driving down here and saw at a commercial building, somebody was blowing the leaves. So I called the office and they called the company, and the company folks said, oh no, you know, we've got a yard service. They're not doing that. And our assistant said, well, Councilwoman Gregory is sitting outside now watching it. And they said, oh, so they don't know. Whatever we can do to try to get the word out, I think is important, as well as the roots and everything else that may not solve the problem, but it hopefully won't make it worse. You know, if we could just keep from making things worse, that would be terrific. And it's not just the clippings and all of that, it's the litter. People throwing the litter out, the car windows, whatever, and not bagging up your trash on your curb. It all goes toward that same problem of storm drains and inlets and clogging up and, you know, washing the water up. So, you know, I think a lot of education is important, but we've just got to try to do a little bit more, I think, as best we can. And it just takes a lot of money to really get to the root of the problem.
There are great examples that exist currently in my district of reasonable resolutions that exist that can be applied to every single district in this city. We did a drainage study of one neighborhood. We said, we're going to try to resolve this neighborhood's issue. We did a design plan of basically just reshaping ditches, making the outfalls, 4 or 5 outfalls, work better. Yeah, this great deluge to this point that there is no municipal system that can handle it. Well, I'll just tell you, the design and everything that was done and these repairs that were made on Canal Drive and Canal Circle, they worked flawlessly. Flawlessly. They worked. Water stayed in the ditches. It made its way to the outfall. Now, the rest of the neighborhood, They probably still need about $20 million. That's just one neighborhood, $20 million to do the very same thing. That works. That resolves the matter for all of those residents. Those same things can be applied to every single district, everywhere, but it's a matter of priority. It's a matter of where we spending our money, and we got to chip away at it. We can't, do everything all the time, because it only takes one storm, one big event. This wasn't even a hurricane. And, it wipes out our community. And then what are we left with at that point? Just a complete disaster zone. And like I said, I've seen them time and time again. The disaster that's going on in St. Petersburg, Florida right now is just unbearable. That these homes have been, completely flooded. They're all slab on grade homes. And now they're substantially damaged, which means every slab on grade home, which we're talking about thousands of them that are substantially damaged, now have to be raised. Now, what's the burden on that community? It's huge. It's tremendous. It affects the city in a way like you wouldn't imagine. So it creates a crisis for your city. This should serve as a warning to us all that we need to reevaluate our priorities going forward and try to direct whatever money and resources we can to improving our infrastructure in this city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Carol, then you Woods.
I guess this is one of those times when you just have to say what you need to say. Just please start with getting the leaves out. The other thing is that when this happened Sunday, we were way out Airport Boulevard, and on the way back, I passed both the ditches that lead back into Halls Mill Creek and into the Dog River watershed. Both the ditches had come up onto Airport Boulevard. Water on Airport Boulevard was at least a foot and a half. I pass there a lot, Nick, and sometimes I see that we have trees growing in those ditches that when they were first done, they were clear. The question is when was the last time we cleaned those ditches? That's just one of the questions, because anything in that ditch impedes the water flow and it slows it down and it backs up faster. So those two are the primaries that lead back into the Halls Mill Creek and back out into the Dog River system. The other thing downtown, and I've mentioned this 100 times, at the outfall at Virginia Street, if we get 2 inches of rain in an hour, the outfall is below the water level, which then backs water up all the way up to Ann Street, and it creates surface running rivers on Selma, Church, Elmira. Now, I'm talking as an engineer now. I'm not talking as a councilman. The real reason is because of that outfall at Virginia Street, and it's never been fixed. If we ever have a Category 5 storm hit Mobile with enough water, we're not going to have drinking water for 3 months because of what's going to happen. That's where our attention needs to be downtown. We say that we're addressing the issue, but that's the real issue we need to address, is that point. The mean elevation in Mobile right now for any home is 13 plus 1. That's mean plus 1. That's 13 plus 1 inches what we have to build if we're going to be above the waterline in order to get flood insurance downtown Mobile. That's why you see some of the newer houses doing that. But if at some point we don't correct that, somewhere in the future, then we're going to have an issue that we're all going to have to deal with, especially downtown. And that is why we see those things happening in Lioncoff, Oakley, down the bay, Bayou Street. Virginia Street at Gale Street, where our own facility is one of the worst. It was 2 foot of water there. And right there at Frost Street, at Hill Marine Firefighter at Montgomery Street and Broad Street, there was 3 feet 6 inches of water there, and it was in a store, in his facility. If we don't correct that one spot at some point in the future, soon, we're going to be headed towards something that we haven't seen before. And it's just simple. And I know it takes money, but right now, all I ask is you help us make it a little bit better by simply sucking the leaves out the drain.
I do not want to belinger the point. I think everybody's made really good points. I think what it comes down to right now, though, is while it's nice to say that we do recognize that we have to spend probably upwards of $1 billion to correct a lot of the issues. We have the system that we have at the moment. I appreciate the administration saying that, you know, within the next couple weeks and next month, they're going to have a plan to start tackling and really continue to tackle these issues. But moving forward, I do want to just make the point that it is, and I will say that previous District 6 council member, Bess Ridge, she championed on the fact of planned purposeful development. Even that's with new roads getting built, with developments that are coming in, especially out in District 6, making sure today that we're doing things. We're not waiving things. We're not saying when a PUD comes up to get changed, we're not allowing things to happen. You know, really focusing on, because I think Sunday even I drove all across my district, went to several places, stood in one of my constituents' garages as water was sheet flowing off a neighborhood that does not have storm drains into a neighborhood that does, and through her back porch and her garage. So really, I think here, you know, the charge of not only this council, the next council, but also this administration, the next administration, is to make sure that as we're changing, modifying, as new things are coming in, old things are going out, that we're addressing that properly and appropriately with a purposeful mind. I know it costs more to build roads where sidewalks exist, where storm drains exist, rather than open ditches and no curbs or anything. But, you know, ensuring that we're putting the water today where it needs to go is important. And then I do want to touch on the infestation of beaver issue. I just for some context, we have been bombarded by emails. I mean, probably close to 700 emails, I would imagine. But I would say that out of the 700, I've only received 3 from my constituents, and probably maybe 4 from across the city. So I do want to put that into context. Is you know, state law, as Robert said, state law says that you can't just trap a beaver and then take it down the street and put it in somebody else's problem, or make it somebody else's problem. So theoretically, we're not catching beavers, running them out to Commissioner Dewitt's district out in the county and saying, "See you later. Here's some money for lunch," or something. We can't do that. You know, really handcuffed by the state. So, and I would just want to kind of put that into context that the majority of these came from folks around the country. I even got one from British Columbia. So, really, when it comes down to it, I think the people of Mobile really realize, as Sunday shows, that water impacts us. And while there's not a real good alternative that maybe makes everybody happy, in the meantime, this is what we got to do. So I definitely, if changes need to be made, I would definitely say you need to start soliciting and reaching out to your state legislator to change anything when that comes. So thank you.
Anything else from this council besides flooding, beavers, and leaves? Go ahead.
Just in case you haven't heard, we are postponing the Public Safety Committee meeting that was scheduled for 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll get back with everybody on a new time and date.
Anything from the administration? Okay, we'll see each other 10:30 downstairs.